Greetings everybody. I am Dr. Mudassir Mirza, Assistant Professor of Physiology, and today I am going to discuss structure of neuron and properties of nerve fiber. Each and every system contributes to maintenance of homeostasis, that is internal environment. Nervous system also does so by maintaining it and regulating it. The nervous system consists of neurons. The structural and functional units of the nervous system are neurons, which generate impulses in response to change in environment that are transmitted to target organ for appropriate control and regulation of homeostasis. As you can see here, the person is moving away the moment he come across a fire. The fire is the change in the environment, which for protection of the person he should move away. For this, the nerve impulses are generated when the person goes near the fire. You can see here it is going to the brain, and the brain sends appropriate signals to locomotor system to move away. So what are these neurons and what is its structure and what are its different properties? Today let us learn. Nervous system is divided into two main subdivisions. The central nervous system, which consists of the brain, and the spinal cord, as you can see here in this diagram. This part of central nervous system is called as brain, and this part, the straight elongated part which is going downwards, is called as spinal cord. The spinal cord is connected to brain via a structure called as brainstem. Now the nerves which are coming out of these brain and spinal cord comprises of peripheral nervous system. Now the nerves coming from the cerebral cortex or brain are called as cranial nerve, as they come out from the cranium, the head or the skull. And the nerves which are coming out from the spinal cord are called as spinal nerves. There is also another nervous system which is formed by plexus around the GIT or gastrointestinal system, which is also called as enteric plexus. In the periphery, most of these spinal nerves, they have receptors which sense the change in the external environment and the internal environment of human body and send appropriate signals for proper response. Now let us see what are the functions of this nervous system. It could be divided into three main functions. The function of sensing the change, which is sensed by receptors. The change in the external environment like vibration, touch, pain, change in temperature is sensed. All these sensations which are related to pain, touch, temperature and vibration and proprioception are grouped under somatic sensation, which are carried by spinal nerves to the brain or central nervous system. There are also special type of sensations like hearing, auditory, visual, smell and taste. These are grouped under special senses which are carried by mainly cranial nerves. After this, they are carried by, this is one of the important function of nervous system is to sense the change in external and internal environment. It does it by with the help of receptors, and the sensations carried to the central nervous system are grouped under somatic sensation and special senses, which I have just now spoken. After they are sent to nervous system performs second important function, that is integration or processing. It processes the information sent by receptors, whether it and proper after proper analysis it takes a proper decision for what should be the response, and then it responds. Producing a proper response is the motor output, which is the third function of nervous system. It could be a motor response like movement. For example, moving towards a chocolate after seeing it. Seeing the chocolate is the sensation carried via the special senses, that is eyes, to the brain, and then there is an effector response of moving towards the chocolate. Okay, so that response is generated via skeletal muscle. Might also be a response in smooth muscle, cardiac muscle and glands, depending on what is the stimuli. For example, if there is change in blood pressure, the appropriate effector system activated is smooth muscle and the cardiac muscle, so that there is appropriate normalization of blood pressure and the heart rate. Okay, I think that makes the clear what are the important functions of nervous system. Now let us see the structure of a neuron. Basically, it is the structural and functional unit of nervous system. That is the definition of a neuron. It mainly consists of a cell body and the processes coming out of cell body which are called as neurites. The neurites are of two types. The small processes are called as dendrites and the long process is called as axon. Now coming to the cell body. The cell body consists of a cytoplasm which is surrounded by a cell membrane. Inside the cell membrane we find several organelles like nucleus, mitochondria, and special bodies which are called as Nissls granules. These Nissls granules are modified endoplasmic reticulum which contain the machinery for the synthesis of neurotransmitters and also nerve growth factors, which contain the machinery for the nerve growth factors, the proteins which are required for nerve growth factor. Now, other than Nissls granules, it contains the microtubules which maintain the structure and shape of the cell body, which are called as neurofibrillae. Neurofibrillae are modified microtubules and microfilaments which are required for maintenance of shape and structure of a cell. In the same way, here also neurofibrillae maintain the shape and structure of the cell body. Now, this Nissls granules are present in dendrites whereas they are absent in axon. So in the axon consists of a single long process coming out from the cell, nerve cell or cell body. It varies in length from few microns to few meters or sometimes up to 1 meter. It arises from a conical extension of the cell body which is called as hillock, axon hillock, which is called as axon hillock. The part of the axon between the axon hillock and uh, the beginning of a myelin sheath is called as initial segment. The cytoplasm present, the cell membrane present around the axon is called as axolemma. As we go down, we can see this axolemma, the covering membrane. It forms terminal buttons, which contain a lot of microvesicles, which are mainly concentrated granules containing a lot of neurotransmitters which are required for transmitting signal from one nerve to another nerve. Around this axon we can see that there is a myelin sheath. Now this myelin sheath consists of a protein lipid complex which is produced by glial cell called Schwann cells. You can see these are the Schwann cells. These are the Schwann cells which is producing myelin sheath. Now this myelin sheath actually it wounds around the axon several hundred times, which basically isolates one axon from the other axon. This myelin sheath acts as an insulation for passage of current. Now between each Schwann cell with myelin sheath, you can see there is a space which is devoid of myelin sheath. This is called as, these are called as nodes of Ranvier. Now these are the these and at these nodes of Ranvier we can find that a lot of electron channels are present. Electron channels or ion channels are concentrated near the nodes of Ranvier, so that the impulse jumps from one node of Ranvier to another node of Ranvier. How it occurs we'll see in the other part of my class. The important function of axon is to transmit the signal from one neuron to the other neuron. The dendrites here, they act as a receiving end of the impulses, and they receive the impulses and they concentrate the impulse, the signal at the axon hillock, which transmits to other neuron via the axon. At the end of the axon, the terminal buttons near the terminal buttons, they release the transmitter which transmits the signal from one neuron to the other neuron. That's all about the structure of a neuron. Now moving on to different types of neurons. Neurons, based on the axon present, they are classified as unipolar, which is having only one pole. Pseudo bipolar, here you can see from one from axon hillock, the axon is splitting into two. That's why it is called as pseudo bipolar. Then this is a true bipolar, in which it has got two poles of axons on either sides. That's why it is called as bipolar axon. And then here you can see this axon, it has got several processes in different direction, which is called as multipolar neuron. Let us see the supporting cells present inside the nervous system. These are the other cells other than neurons. These are also called as glial cells. Glial cells are classified into macroglia and microglia. Macroglia are one which are called as fibrous astrocytes, and other which are protoplasmic astrocytes. Then there are oligodendrocytes and microglia. These are the supporting cells present in the nervous system. Now let us see the classification of nerve fibers, which are classified as myelinated or unmyelinated. The nerve fibers which contain myelin sheath, a sheath which wraps around the axon, is called as myelinated nerve fiber. And there is another type of nerve fiber in which the axon is not wrapped up by the myelin sheath secreted from the Schwann cells. Next classification of nerve fibers is whether the nerve fibers are somatic or visceral. The nerve fibers which innervate musculoskeletal structures are called as somatic nerves, and the nerve fibers which innervate viscera like heart, the intestines, the lungs, these nerves which innervate the viscera are called as visceral nerves. And one more classification is there, that is cranial and spinal. The nerves which are coming out from the cranium directly from the cerebral cortex are called as cranial nerves, and the nerves coming from the spinal cord are called as spinal nerves. Next classification is motor nerves and the sensory nerves. The nerves which innervate musculoskeletal structures, the muscles, are called as motor nerves. It could be smooth muscle or a skeletal muscle. And the nerves which carry the impulses from the receptors are called as sensory nerves. Next classification is adrenergic versus cholinergic. The nerves which release adrenaline as a neurotransmitter are called as adrenergic nerves, and the nerves which release acetylcholine at their nerve terminal are called as cholinergic nerves. And most commonly accepted classification of nerves is the classification given by Erlanger and Gasser. This classification was done based on the diameter of the nerve fiber, and conduction velocity. The highest conduction velocity with broad diameter were grouped as A fiber, less than that was grouped as B fiber, and less than that were grouped as C fibers. Again, the A fiber type were grouped into four: alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. The A alpha fibers had a diameter of 12 to 20 microns and a conduction velocity of 70 to 120 meters per second. The A beta myelinated fibers had a diameter of 5 to 12 and they had a conduction velocity of 30 to 70. The gamma myelinated fibers had a diameter of 3 to 6 microns and a conduction velocity of 15 to 30. The delta fibers had a diameter of 2 to 5 microns and a velocity of 12 to 30. B fibers were having a diameter less than 3 and their conduction velocity was ranging from 3 to 15. Now less than that, the least nerve fibers with least velocity were the C fibers, which were having a diameter of 0.4 to 1.2 and conduction velocity of 0.5 to 2 meters per second. Moving on to the properties of nerve fiber, which is very important component of today's topic. The list of properties of nerve fiber are: number 1, excitability, strength duration relationship, all or none phenomena, refractory period, accommodation, summation, indefatigability, and conductivity. These are the list of properties. Now let us consider each and every property. Now let us see what is the first property of a neuron, that is excitability. It is a property by virtue of which the nerve responds by producing a nerve impulse when stimulated by a suitable stimuli, which could be thermal, mechanical, electrical, or chemical. The nerve impulse produced is called as action potential. What is the important function of a neuron? To transmit the impulse from one area to other area, or to transmit the signal from one region to other region, to transmit the proper appropriate information from one area to the other area. This passage of information is done in the form of nerve impulse, which propagates along the membrane of the neuron, and this nerve impulse propagates as a uh, special potential, which is called as action potential. Now what is this action potential? Action potential is momentary reversal in the potential difference across the membrane of the neuron when it has been activated by threshold stimulus, which propagates as an impulse along the membrane with same intensity. So the signal propagates from the cell body to the nerve terminal with same intensity. Now, as this is a very momentary event, it has to be recorded with the help of equipment which has very less inertia. One such equipment is cathode ray oscilloscope. This cathode ray oscilloscope consists of a cathode ray and a screen, which is attached to a recording electrodes, and there is also a stimulator in it. When stimulus is given, we'll see the following phases. Before stimulus is given, the nerve is in resting phase. The potential across the membrane is in resting phase, which is called as resting membrane potential, which is about minus 70 millivolts. Then after giving the stimulus, we get a stimulus artifact, which you can see here at the point A. This is a stimulus artifact when stimulus is given. After stimulus is given, there is a latent phase. The phase between or the duration between the stimulus and beginning of the depolarization. Next, after the stimulus is given, it depolarizes slowly. Then it reaches a firing level. Now, what is the firing level? Firing level is the membrane potential across the membrane at which the depolarization progresses very fast, which is about minus 55 millivolts. After it progresses very fast, it depolarizes completely. That is, the potential inside the cell becomes more positive when compared to outside, which is about plus 35 millivolts. After it reaches this plus 35 millivolts, again the inside of the neuron starts becoming negative, which is called as repolarization phase, which is the phase between point C and point D. After that, it further repolarizes, which is the phase between D and point E, which is called as after depolarization. Beyond point E, the repolarization becomes more negative than the resting phase, which is called as hyperpolarization. So this phase between E to F is that hyperpolarization phase, which is called as after hyperpolarization phase. So these are the different phases of an action potential, which is the nerve impulse generated in a neuron, which helps in transmitting the signal from one point to the other point. Now let us see what are the ionic bases of this action potential. So initially, when the membrane is at rest, there is more negativity inside the membrane when compared to outside. So ECF is more positive and ICF is more negative. When impulse is given, it has got voltage gated sodium channel which opens. When the voltage gated sodium channel opens, there is influx of the sodium ions. When the sodium ions get inside, the negativity of the inside membrane becomes positive. The negativity of the membrane becomes positive. Now when this it becomes positive, the adjacent voltage gated channel which responds to change in the membrane potential opens up, and further influx of sodium ions occurs, and that's how the depolarization propagates, which is also called as Hodgkin cycle. So initially there is opening of sodium channel which depolarizes the membrane, which further opens the sodium channels and again depolarizes, and opening of the sodium channel and more membrane depolarization. It continues and continues till whole membrane of the neuron is completely depolarized. Now at the end of depolarization, there starts the rapid efflux of potassium. When the efflux of potassium occurs again, the membrane becomes more negative inside when compared to outside. That's how the repolarization occurs. So depolarization occurs by influx of the sodium and repolarization occurs by efflux of the potassium, which is more inside the cell. This is how the depolarization and repolarization of the membrane occurs, which generates a action potential which acts as a nerve impulse to transmit the signal from one point to the other point. Now let us see the other components of the important property excitability. As I have said, it generates an action potential when a threshold stimulus is given. So it obeys a all or none phenomena. Only when threshold stimulus is given, it responds in a all manner. It responds. And if a subthreshold stimulus is given, it fails to respond. There is a non-response. So that is the all or none phenomena, which states that only a threshold stimulus can elicit a response, all response, and subthreshold stimulus fails to elicit a response, that is non-response or no response. And when supra-threshold stimulus is given, the response is same, that is all response, provided experimental conditions are same for a neuron. Another component which is observed in a neuron as its property is the strength duration curve. Strength when a proper strength of stimulus is given, which is called as a Rio base. When a Rio base a small amount of stimulus is given, which is measured in terms of volts, when it is given, it responds. It gives a response by generating an action potential. When it responds, the time required for the nerve to give response is called as utilization time. And there is another time which is called as chronaxy, which is time required for the stimulus of double the Rio base strength to produce a response. What is Rio base? It is a minimal strength of the stimulus to generate a response. Double the Rio base, the time taken by the neuron to initiate a response is called as chronaxy. So this is the measure of excitability. Chronaxy is less for a neuron. That is, it means it is highly excitable tissue. When compared to muscle, it is more or better excitable. Now coming to the another property of excitability, that is refractory period. The refractory period of the neuron is the brief period during which neuron is not excitable for a second stimulus, which is called as refractory period. It is divided into absolute refractory period and relative refractory period. Absolute refractory period is a time during which whatever amount of stimulus is given for whatever duration, the neuron never responds. Whereas refractory period is a duration during which if a supra-threshold stimulus is given at a high frequency, it might generate a response which falls in the later half of repolarization. Absolute refractory period falls during the depolarization phase and early part of repolarization, as you can see here. And relative refractory period falls in the later part of repolarization or during after depolarization phase of the action potential. Next important property demonstrated by a neuron is accommodation. This is the phenomena of decrease in excitability of a nerve when a constant current passes through it. When it means that when a current passing through a neuron is constant, that is, if we pass a 10 millivolt current through a neuron, if we give a stimulus, initially there would be a response. After some time, same 10 millivolts if we are giving, it won't respond. Why? Because there is constant current passing to it. There is no change. And neuron is a structure which detects the change. So whenever there is change in the voltage, only then it gets excited. If if it is getting a constant current and not getting a change of current, it doesn't give any response. It accommodates to that current or stimulus, which is called as accommodation. So accommodation is a phenomenon of decrease in excitability of nerve when constant current passes through it. And the phenomena is summation. So before going to summation, there are sub-threshold stimuli. Stimuli can be divided into three types. One is threshold stimulus, which is the adequate stimulus to generate action potential. Another one is subthreshold and suprathreshold. Subthreshold stimulus are again divided into catalectronic and anelectronic stimuli. Catalectronic stimuli are the stimuli generated at the cathode, which are graded stimuli. The response seen or the voltage change in the voltage across the membrane seen in a graded manner in accordance with the stimuli given, which is less than the threshold stimulus. Okay, and this subthreshold stimulus fails to elicit any response, or this graded response, graded stimuli, they fail to generate any response in the tissue. But when a subthreshold stimulus are applied in a quick succession at a high frequency, they add up or they sum up to a firing level to generate a action potential. For example, if we take 10 millivolts is the threshold stimulus, 9 would be subthreshold stimulus. When 9 and 9 subthreshold stimulus are applied very quickly at a high frequency, the 9 and 9 would add up to 18 and would give a response. This is called as summation, and this summation is temporal summation, which is summating with time at a high frequency. The stimuli, they summate to a higher level beyond 10, which is the threshold stimulus for the neuron, and gives a response. That is a summation. Now moving on to another property, that is indefatigability. The nerve fiber never fatigues even when the stimuli is applied for a long time. Next property of the neuron is conductivity. The propagation of nerve impulse along the membrane in the form of wave of depolarization is called as conductivity. It is of two types. Orthodromic, that is conducting from the cell body to the nerve terminal, is called as orthodromic, and propagation of nerve impulse from the nerve terminal towards the cell body is called as antidromic. Now, there is a difference between how conduction of impulse occurs in non-myelinated and myelinated fibers. In myelinated fibers, you can see when the stimulus is given, adjacent the ion channels are present adjacent to each other. So the adjacent voltage gated sodium channel get activated when the depolarization wave is passing, and subsequently the wave of depolarization passes along the nerve in a continuous manner. When an appropriate stimulus is applied at this end, you can see here in the non-myelinated fiber, the polarity reverses. That is, the inside becomes positive and outside becomes negative. Now, both ECF and ICF are very good conductors of ions. Now what happens is the the negativity outside and positivity inside also stimulates the neighboring sodium ion channels or activates them to the threshold level, and the neighboring area also gets depolarized. That is how from one point to the other point the wave of action potential or depolarization progresses by depolarizing the neighboring area. This type of propagation is also called as electrotonic propagation of nerve impulse. You can see here it is transmitting. Now what happens in myelinated fiber? The myelinated fiber myelin sheath acts as a insulation. It does not allow the current to pass. Now what happens here is at the nodes of Ranvier there is high concentration of ion channels. Now these ion channels are the voltage gated channels which allow influx of sodium and efflux of potassium for proper depolarization and repolarization, which are the components of action potential. Now what happens in myelinated fiber is what happens in the myelinated fiber is the axonal membrane in the naked area bears a densely packed ion channels. The myelin sheath acts as a insulator. Here the myelin sheath acts as a insulator and does not allow the current to flow. Therefore, in myelinated nerve fiber, the local circuit of current flow only occurs from one node of Ranvier to an adjacent node of Ranvier. As you can see here, the impulse is jumping from this point to this point, not in the middle. Okay, so the impulse jumps from one node of Ranvier to next node of Ranvier. This is called as saltatory conduction. Saltatory means jump. So the nerve impulse is conducted in the form of saltatory or jumping manner. Since the impulse jumps from one node to another node, the speed of conduction is very high in myelinated fibers when compared to non-myelinated fibers, which you will be learning in subsequent classes. Now let us understand what is a synapse. By definition, it is a region where communication occurs between two neurons or a neuron and an effector cell, which could be a muscle cell or a glandular cell. Now, when the synapse occurs, one neuron which sends the impulses is called as presynaptic neuron, which could be this neuron or this neuron or this neuron. The neuron which sends the impulses to the other neuron is called as presynaptic neuron, and the neuron after the synapse, the gap, is called as a postsynaptic neuron, which receives the information or impulses from the presynaptic neuron, which is this. Now these synapses could be classified based on its connection with dendrite or the soma or the axon. The synapse in which there is a synapse between axon and the dendrite is called as axodendritic synapse, and the synapse between the axon and the soma of the postsynaptic neuron is called as axosomatic synapse, and the synapse between the axon of presynaptic neuron and the axon of postsynaptic neuron is called as axonic synapse. Now let us see one type of chemical synapse, that is neuromuscular junction. By definition, it is the intimate contact of nerve endings with the muscle fibers, nerve ending with the muscle fibers to which they innervate. It mainly consists of a terminal button, presynaptic membrane, terminal button, presynaptic membrane, synaptic cleft, and postsynaptic membrane. Postsynaptic membrane. The axon which innervates the muscle loses its myelin sheath. Here you can see the axon has lost its myelin sheath. So the axon loses its myelin sheath and forms a enlarged bulb-like structure which is called as terminal button. If you see closely in this terminal button, it is highly concentrated with vesicles containing acetylcholine and mitochondria. Acetylcholine acts as a neurotransmitter for transmission of impulse from the nerve to the muscle. As chemical helps in transmission of impulse from the nerve to the muscle, it is called as chemical synapse. The mitochondria present provides good amount of energy required for this neuromuscular junction impulse transmission. Now further seeing, the membrane which covers the terminal button is called as presynaptic membrane. Presynaptic membrane. And the potential space between presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane is called as synaptic cleft. Here you can see the potential space between the presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane is called as synaptic cleft. Its distance ranges between 50 to 100 nanometers. Now let us see what is there in the postsynaptic membrane. The postsynaptic membrane forms a trough-like structure which is called as synaptic trough. And the postsynaptic membrane in the region of trough thickens to form a motor end plate. Motor end plate. Now this motor end plate has got a lot of clefts which are called as subneural clefts. It has got several folds. You can see here these are the folds. These folds are called as subneural clefts. Now these subneural clefts, they are mainly concentrated with receptors for acetylcholine. Receptor for acetylcholine and cholinesterase enzyme. So that is about the structure of neuromuscular junction, the junction between the nerve terminal and the muscle it innervates. This is the muscle and this is the nerve. Let us see how the neuromuscular transmission occurs. In this, the step number 1 is the nerve impulses arises at the axon terminal at terminal button. When the nerve impulse arises at the terminal button, you can see here voltage gated calcium channels open. Now what is this voltage gated calcium channel? You know, every house has a gate. When we ring the bell, we go and open the gate. In the same way, ion channels are also having gates. So these ion channels, let us say it is calcium or sodium or potassium or any channel which are gated, which has got gates. These gates open specifically either when a ligand, a chemical binds to it, or when there is a voltage change across the gate, or there is mechanical disturbances across the gate. Accordingly, these gated channels are classified into three. Number one, ligand gated, in which when the ligand binds, the gate opens. Number two, voltage gated. Whenever there is change in the voltage across the membrane, the gate opens. As in case of this example, in which here the nerve impulse comes, the depolarization wave comes from the axon, along the axon. When it reaches this voltage gated channel, this gate opens and allows calcium to enter inside. Similarly, there is another gated channel which is called as mechanical gated channel. Now in mechanical gated channel, these gates open whenever there is a mechanical disturbance. These mechanical gated channels are present in auditory apparatus, which we'll be learning when you learn about special senses. Now the first step is nerve impulses arising near the terminal button. When they arise, they cause opening of voltage gated calcium channel. The entry of calcium causes degranulation of the vesicles containing acetylcholine. The acetylcholine is released, as you can see here. Step number 2. Acetylcholine is released into the synaptic cleft, which travels along the synaptic cleft to reach the postsynaptic membrane. In the postsynaptic membrane, acetylcholine binds with ligand-gated ion channel, which I have mentioned just now. The ligand here is acetylcholine. When it binds with the ligand-gated acetylcholine receptors, the ion channel opens and allows sodium entry. And again, when sodium enters, it causes membrane depolarization in the muscle. When the depolarization occurs, it generates end plate potential. The end plate potential summates to generate a muscle action potential. That is the last step. After that, after the generation of required action potential, the acetylcholine present bound to the acetylcholine receptor is removed by by enzymatic action of choline esterase, and it is broken down into small structures which is removed from there. That is how neuromuscular transmission occurs. Neurotransmitters. These are the chemical substances which transmit the signal from the nerve to another nerve and also from nerve to its target organs. The target organ could be a muscle or a gland. Now these neurotransmitters are classified on as small molecular neurotransmitters and neuropeptides broadly. Again, these small molecular neurotransmitters are classified into following subtypes. Number one is acetylcholine, which is a excitatory neurotransmitter, and it is the main neurotransmitter at neuromuscular junction. Other type of neurotransmitters are amino acid derivatives, which are glutamate, aspartate, and gamma aminobutyric acid. Glutamate and aspartate are excitatory neurotransmitters. That is, when the nerve impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another neuron, there is excitatory signal transmitted. Whereas gamma aminobutyric acid is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. That is, when the impulse is transmitted from the neuron to the other neuron, the subsequent neuron impulses are inhibited, or there is inhibition in the target organ, which could be a muscle or a gland. Next is biogenic amines. The biogenic amines which transmit the nerve impulses are norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin. There are also a subtype of small molecular neurotransmitter, that is ATP and other purines. Now, there is a special type of small molecular neurotransmitter which are called as nitric oxide and carbon monoxide. These are the two gas form of neurotransmitters. Nitric oxide mainly acts as a vasodilator. It is also called as endothelial derived relaxing factor. These are these, that is nitric oxide and carbon monoxide, they are not stored in vesicles. They are synthesized whenever required according to the need of the body, and after they are synthesized, they perform their activity, they are removed or destroyed. Next type of neurotransmitters are neuropeptides. These are endorphins, enkephalins, dynorphin, and substance P. That's all about neurotransmitter. That's all about introduction of nervous system, the functional unit of nervous system, that is neuron, different types of nerve fiber, the synapse, the structure of neuromuscular junction, and how the impulses are transmitted across the neuromuscular junction, and different types of neurotransmitters.